Okay, so now you're on your journey. But how often do you check in? G'day, I'm Andy and welcome to Walkabout Wisdom. This is a podcast where I don't try and teach you how to run your life or what you should be doing after you looking after yourself or all that type of stuff. Well, I sort of do. But it's also not a podcast where I pretend that I've got it all together. Lord knows, and those that know me know that I am nowhere near having all this together. This podcast is simply an opportunity for me to share my life lessons and life experiences that I picked up throughout my entire life, of course, because it's life experiences. Anyway, so experiences picked up either living in rural communities or the many years of military service with the Australian Army and everything else in between. So sit back, relax, and let's go for a walk. So during episode 1 or throughout episode 1, we talked about making that first step, pressing that button, not waiting for the perfect plan, because the closing thought, perfection is boring. Okay, there's no challenges. Well, there may be challenges to try and maintain that perception that you've got it all perfect. Achieving perfection wastes time. But now that we're doing that, we've hit the button, we're moving forward, we're on our journey. But how often do we check in? Not only checking in with other people or letting people know where you're at, like if you should be doing when you're hiking or if you're traveling around the countryside somewhere, but checking in with a mate that may not be doing so well. Maintaining promises to yourself, checking in with yourself. That's an important part of life, and making sure that not only we're all told look after your mates, your mates are your best buddies, look after all them, because they're the ones that'll pull you through the hard times, and that's 100% correct. There is no two ways that that's incorrect. What we're not good at doing, especially us Australian males that are approaching midlife, we're not good at checking in on ourselves. We don't take a moment to go, hey Andy, are you okay? And trying to figure out what's going on inside our little heads and where we're actually at in life and what it is that we're actually trying to achieve. What does our personal success look like? What does our personal happiness look like? So we're just going to talk a little bit about that throughout today's podcast, and I do apologise for some of the noise in the voice. I figured whilst it's fresh in my head, I'll do it whilst I'm travelling in to see a client. Don't worry, it's hands-free, it's on a mount, I'm maintaining visual eyes on the road, doing all my checks, don't panic, it's all good, until it's not. Anyway, so I was thinking about this the other day and how I could work through this podcast, because it's very important that we understand all this, especially whilst we've just started on our journey. We're entering into a whole new area, a whole new world, but we can't just focus on ourselves. We've got to remember where we come from and who's been there for us. And I was thinking about it before because I was going to try and provide some personal examples, and it's pretty hard to do so because I don't want to mention people's names. I don't want to talk specifics about examples or circumstances I've been involved in, but I had a mate of mine a couple of years back. He was going through some seriously rough shit. Right? We were working in the same company at the time, and he was going through some really hard times. I mean, from what I could see and from what we've discussed since, it was pretty much close to him hitting rock bottom. And then, it's terrible watching a mate go through that. And then some of the conversations that we'd have, it'd be just sitting there and listen, right? Let him offload. We can't assume or even pretend that we can survive. Oh, I've got to work on that one. That we can solve everybody's problems. There's no way. I can't even solve my own. Anywho, moving on. Sometimes people just need somebody to talk to, somebody to bounce off, somebody just to offload on, because they're carrying a lot of shit, right? And our trick, or the trick for us on the, we'll call it the receiving end, is being able to identify when it's time to sit there and shut up, and when it's time to provide maybe some advice and guidance, especially from your side of the fence. Because remember, you're looking at it from a completely different point of view. But it's also identifying times to provide some harsh realities too. There's been many a time that we had a conversation, I, for want of a better word, had to tell him to pull his head in because he was just talking smack. You know, but they're hard conversations to have, even with a good mate. We don't want to let mates down, we don't want to hurt them, but sometimes you've just got to be able to do that. But what it did is it reassured to both of us that, you know, I know I'll be there for him. You know, he'll give me a call every now and then, I may miss his call, but we'll call back or I'll text or what have you. 9 times out of 10 we're just talking shit anyway. But in the same circumstance, I know he's going to be there for me. Because I was going through some shit just a couple of years back. All personal. There was nothing from the outside. It was all in here. You know, that something that a lot of people tell you it's not right up there. But it was starting to show through. And it wasn't until I was reflecting on how this particular episode was going to go that I realised that, you know, I had run myself exceptionally thin. I was running down an exceptionally thin line, and it was starting to show. I was at a convention, and 2 mates of mine and a bloke I'd never met before all asked if I was okay. So I must have been, you know, near on see-through for a mate that I hadn't seen in years. I deployed overseas with him. He mentioned it. The other mate that I was there for, he brought it up as well. You know, and this other bloke that was manning a booth next to where we were operating out of, he asked me if everything was all right, because he was experienced in identifying that. And that's when I realised that, oh, you know, fuck, I hadn't taken a moment for me. I was working as I was supporting friends of mine in their business, trying to help them to grow, get out there, and the pressure that I was taking on, as well as trying to grow my own little brand, plus some of the other clients I was dealing with, I won't say I was punching above my weight, but I was definitely consuming way too many hours doing work. And it wasn't until somebody said to me, "Hey, Andy, are you okay?" that I realised that, you know what, I fucking wasn't. And that started me down the path of, you know, starting to look after myself again and putting myself in a better place. And the fact that I'm here now openly talking about it means that somebody did something that worked for me. Whether that was me or the counsellor, psychologist, who knows? But it was somebody, you know, maybe a combination of all of the above. It's very important to make sure that you got yourself right. And it doesn't have to be, you know, especially if we're talking about mates and catching up with people, it doesn't have to be a physical check-in. I mean, a lot of my all of my close friends, and count them on 3 fingers, live in a completely different state or city to where I live. One of them's 3 or 4 hours by plane, and the others are a couple of hours by car. I know it's not big here for Australia to, you know, run 2 or 3 hours for a day trip, but it's still, it's hard just to drop in, you know. So this is where modern technology comes in and play. A text is okay. You can send a text. I had a friend of mine who was going through some, I'd say personal trauma. They had a loss in the family, and she was very close to the member that passed away. She was going through that mourning and grieving stuff. So I heard about it on the day that it occurred through some colleagues, and I know for myself, and knowing the type of person that she is, I waited a day or 2, because she would have been getting bombarded, and it just, you know, making comments like, "Oh, my condolences, so sad to hear," you know, all those. Even though people seem to think that they mean it, or they do mean it, on the receiving end, it still comes across a little bit hollow. And sometimes, right, not all the time, but sometimes it's just like, yeah, that's who used to do those cards? Whoever does those grieving cards, you know what I mean? A Hallmark moment. There we go. Or a Hallmark comment. So I try and avoid that wherever I can, unless circumstances, and then I'll try and, but anyway. So I left it a day or two for her to get over that initial shock of everything just happening. Sent her a text, and it was a simple text. Hey Missy, just checking in to check up. That was it. Nothing more, nothing else. None of that, oh, I'm sorry to hear. Because she knew, and I knew, just that simple, hey, just checking in on you, lovey, sort of text. She knew what I meant. She read the underlying, She knew that was a message of caring for her, without being too fucking sloppy. I didn't expect her to reply straight away. Being in that type of circumstance, and she's around family, and she's still going through her grieving and mourning process and everything else that's related to that. But the very next day, got a text, and it was, thanks Sandy, love you type comment, appreciate it. And then we spoke probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, So it doesn't have to be. It can be, if you haven't spoken to someone in quite some time, and you're like me, you don't get on Facebook very often, but you get caught in one of those death scrolls once a month or wherever, or whatever. You see somebody you haven't seen for a while, just hit a like on one of their comments, or you don't have to be like me, or make a smart ass comment to one of their posts, just to let them know, just to reach out that they're there. I was guilty, and probably still am guilty, of not doing it often enough. I had a friend of mine who took his own life a couple of years back, and to this day it still cuts me up, because I never got the chance. I never got a chance to reach out to him as often as I should. No, that's incorrect. The chances were always there. I never took the opportunity to reach out to him every time that I could have, or should have. It was like, oh yeah, I'll see him the next day, or we'll catch up soon, and then one day he wasn't there. So don't wait. If somebody's in your mind, somebody's in your thoughts, it could be because you haven't spoken to them for a while. It could be because you've heard something about them, or it could just be the universe, or however our mind works, letting you know that perhaps you should reach out, just say good day, just to check in. Hey mate, what's up? Or in my thoughts lately, hope you're okay. I hope everything's good. And never be afraid of saying the wrong fucking thing. Jesus, if I adopted that, I wouldn't be saying a word. I've lost count the amount of times where something's really funny in my head, or in my head I think that'll get a good response, and then there's crickets. Whether it's crickets because it wasn't funny, or whether it's crickets because maybe the audience thought it was bad timing, maybe it was too soon. Who knows? But look, you're gonna mess it up every now and then, but don't let that stop you. Learn from it. Understand the type of audience you're dealing with. You go, I'll wait for that one. I'll tuck that one. I won't say that now. I'll just nod politely. But it's super important, especially when you're stepping out and doing something that you haven't done before, or you're doing something that is all-consuming, or you want it to be all-consuming, or you're just lost in it, or not, but lost as in super involved, and it's well, I suppose it's the same as consuming, isn't it? Or it's something that seems to be, that may be a little bit more stressful than everything else, or it's going over an extended period. Just take a step back, just stop for a second, have a cup of tea, a Beckson tea, and cool down. Or go find, if you like having a beer, go find a pub you haven't been to before, and just sit there, sip on it quietly, or however you want to consume it, and just look around, just contemplate. Go for a walk. Okay, go for a walk. If you're going to take your phone, don't answer any calls. If your phone can do it, put on non-disturb. Do not disturb for the hour. Go off grid for an hour. All right, just to disconnect yourself from whatever they are, and get some other good distractions going in your head. And you'll find, well, I find, doing something like that, whether it's going to a pub, I don't drink tea that often, or going for a walk, or Hell, for me, sometimes going for a drive, right? I've got to travel an hour to get in to see some of my clients. I won't turn the music on, I won't turn an audiobook on. In fact, the stereo will be off. The phone won't even be plugged in, and I'll just be sitting there in my thoughts. You know, I had a mate of mine who did that a couple of years back, travelling from Victoria to South Australia. Tony, he said, I just didn't turn anything on, just drove. And just let my head wander. And then, you know, it cleared him up. It cleared his head up. He wasn't doing it for psych reasons. He was doing it because he had a lot of stuff going on with his business and work and everything else he had planned and needed to get sorted, you know. So don't be afraid to switch things off for a little bit, even for an hour. Okay. Give yourself the time that you give your mates, basically, at the end of the day. Don't ignore your mates. You can't ignore your mates, because they are the ones that'll pull you out when you hit the bottom, or as you're falling, they'll try and catch you, or they'll try and be your parachute, or they'll try and make sure you don't hit the ground too hard, you know, and then they'll be the ones to bring you back. They will help you back up. The true mates will. So don't forget about them. Always check in with them. So always check in with yourself. Got to do it. Got to do it. Anyway, I think I've rambled on enough. That's a bit over 15 minutes, so I don't want to bore you too much. And again, this is only episode 2, so I'm still trying to get this right. So please, if there's something in there that resonated with you, or it reminded you of somebody that, you know, geez, I haven't spoke to him for a while, I haven't sent him a text, or I haven't heard from him, you know, I heard or whatever, or if you know of somebody that might be interested in listening to this, reach out. Don't be afraid. Turn your phone off for an hour. You know, sit back and check in with yourself. Alright, that's it. End of episode 2. Keen for your thoughts if you want to put any in, any commentary. So I just had an idiot in a Volvo come around me, overtaking a truck, and then put the brakes on as I changed lanes. Yeah, where were we? So, reach out to your mates, check in with yourself, and keep walking down your path. Till next time, this is Andy, and Walkabout Wisdom.